Hello and welcome back to 1992. I'm here with Jonathan Wilson. My name's Dan Bardell and we are here to preview week 2 of the Premier League action. And Jonathan, it was an exciting start to the season, bar taking a beating in the Predictions League, the first round of fixtures. Did you enjoy the first week of the Premier League?
Oh, I did. I was at Anfield, then I was at Old Trafford. The game at Anfield, a ridiculous game of football. So much happened. I mean, obviously the Semenyo and the racism, which is awful. Jota and the tribute, which is awful, but also very moving. So you had all that going on, but then you also had a really exceptional game of football as well, where Liverpool looked really exciting going forward, but quite open at the back. You looked at Bournemouth and obvious concerns that they've lost 3 of their back 4 plus their keeper from last season. And I think you saw the effect of that, but they're still obviously a very good side. They still press really well. Semenyo played brilliantly, scored a second goal, especially, really great sort of presence of mind, having sprinted 60 yards to realise the gap had opened up for him. He didn't have to lay it off either side. So it was just one of those nights where you think, that's why the Premier League is so popular. All these storylines plus incredibly pulsating, exciting football. Old Trafford, I would say less exciting, but
I really enjoyed that game. I really thought it was a good game.
Intriguing in its own way. I'm slightly baffled by how much praise United have had for that game.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's a little bit like the teenage son who's rubbish at sport who plays quite well first day of the season. Everybody's like, "Oh, well done! No, I thought you've improved loads over some of it. Oh, you're great." I feel we're at the pity stage of the United narrative, and I'm not sure that's great. But having said that, Raya made 7 saves. I think Arsenal Mikel Arteta was pretty unhappy with how they played. There's an element of them getting away with it. So in that sense, actually not unlike their first away game last season when, as you'll remember, they beat Villa and Raya made that brilliant double save. Yeah. And I felt then there was a lot of talk of Arsenal of, oh, look, they've worked out a way to win without playing well. And you're sort of like, well, have they? Or have they just not played well and won, which is a slightly different thing. And I feel very much in the same boat. I'm not convinced there's a new hard-shelled Arsenal about to sort of crush the league without playing particularly well. But they still have set pieces. They don't have to play well to win games. And I felt United were pretty patchy, lacking cohesion, showed some signs going forward, but actually a lot of the old problems remain. So from Arsenal's point of view, they've beaten United, and United might be better this season, and they didn't beat United at Old Trafford last season. So in that sense, they're 2 points up. And I think I'd be surprised if United lose 9 games at Old Trafford this season as they did last. So it's a very good win to have. While if I were an Arsenal fan, I'd be concerned about performance.
Jonathan, your description of Manchester United on the opening day of the season reminds me very much of my sporting career. The odd flash of brilliance usually at the start of the season and then never to be seen again. But like you say, I don't think that's what will happen with Manchester United this time round.
I thought you were a commanding centre-back of some repute. Is that not true?
I think as I've got older and you play, so every now and again you're playing a game, I'm reasonably fit. So people my age aren't generally. I'm sure you find that with people of your generation as well. You're a fit guy, so I kind of get by on that. And I did put in a good performance last time I played proper football at centre back. I used to be a good keeper back in the day as well. So I've got a few strings to my bow, but generally, when I was a child, not very good. I was going to say better at predictions. That was a terrible segue because I only got 6. I only got 6 points in the Predictions League last week. But Jonathan, you got 5. I did try and chalk a point off for you by mistake, and you pointed it out when I sent the running order. I wouldn't say you've really got a highlight in there. My highlight is that I got the Manchester City score bang on. But you kind of limped your way to 5, whereas I've got one really big hit in mine.
Yeah, you got 4 points back then, didn't you? Because you got the 0-0. Sorry, you got the 4-0, plus you got Haaland getting the first goal. Yeah, no, I mean, mine was very, very dull, sort of. But the thing is, in a bad week, to pick up 5 points, be only a point behind, that is the mark of a champion. That's the equivalent of what Arsenal did.
So hopefully you're Arsenal then, and I'm Man City or Liverpool, and I still win the league. But no, I should be wary that you've not performed brilliantly, but yet you've still only got 1 point less than me. And of course, we'll be doing our predictions again this week. was going to say, should we start with predictions? But no, let's start with Manchester City against Spurs. And then I did actually nearly just read my prediction out because I've put it by the title of this game. We've got to start with Tottenham and EZE. I thought we'd be coming on here today talking about Tottenham signing him. Where's he going to fit in? Blah, blah, blah. Turns out they've snoozed and they've lost because their big rivals, Arsenal, they're now signing him, Jonathan.
Yeah, I don't think it's, from what I hear, I don't think it's a case of Spurs snoozing.
Yeah,
I
that
think
was harsh.
I think Arsenal have been negotiating behind the scenes for quite a while, and I don't know about this, but I get the impression Palace have sort of used Tottenham's interest as a bit of a smokescreen while they got the Arsenal deal done. So look, fundamentally, Tottenham will be very annoyed to have lost out on another player that both Gibbs White and Eze, they felt very close, and neither of them have gone through. I think they'll go in for Savino again, which obviously has ramifications for City. I think that's very dependent on whether City can get Rodrigo. I don't think Savino is as good as Gibbs White or Eze. It doesn't feel such a
The
natural
same
fit.
type of player.
I don't think it's good though. I think I'd rather have Eze out of those three, definitely. And then, in fact, in order, I'd go Eze, Gibbs White, Savino. I mean, Savino's younger than the other two. Maybe he'll develop. But yeah, I sort of think. I wrote this before the Super Cup final, that it's been a really frustrating summer for Spurs. That they have the glory in Bilbao, they have the parade, Postecoglou has this sort of Viking funeral, being sent out on this sort of blazing ship, and there's sort of a glory to it. And then absolutely nothing's happened. In terms of players who are going to have an immediate positive impact on that side, the only ones they've got are Polina, who's only on loan, and Kudus. And Kudus, I think, has looked pretty good so far. I think Richarlison looks like he responds to Thomas Frank so far. So I think their performances so far, the two games, have both been good, far better than you might have expected. They look a better balanced side than they did last season. The fact they've played in such a different way in the two games against PSG and Burnley, I think that's a very encouraging thing for Tottenham, having had the 2 years of that's just the way we play, albeit they did adjust in the Europa League towards the end last season. So to be able to play back three in one game, back four the other, to be able to play on the break in one game, to be much more front foot in the other, all of that's really positive. But you look at the personnel, particularly with Kulusevski still injured, with Madison getting injury, and you can't honestly say that the squad looks any better than it did last season. And that's must be a massive frustration for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the win on the opening day, I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's Burnley. This weekend will be a bigger test of where Tottenham are at. But what I would say is, and you kind of touched on it there, is that in the new manager, Thomas Frank, Spurs have actually got quite a lot of players. You do feel like he's the kind of man manager that can maybe get the best out of players like Richarlison, who've been at the club a while, have never really hit the heights that Spurs fans wanted them to. Although they haven't made loads of signings, I do feel like he may rejuvenate quite a lot of players that are already in the building.
Yeah, hopefully. And they have obviously struggled with injuries, particularly last season. And if they can keep people fit, that makes a big difference. I think the fact that they changed the back of midfield completely between the two games, that Bergvall and Archie Gray came in for the Burnley game, I think that's it's a sign of how he's maybe more prepared to use a squad than Postecoglou was. It wouldn't take much to go wrong before Spurs fans are looking at that squad thinking, Levy stiffed us again. We're paying all this money for season tickets. We've got all this this revenue coming in because we're in the Champions League, and we're not spending any of it. And the danger then is you go and spend. I mean, Levy won't do this, but the danger is you then spend sort of stupidly just because you feel you have to do something. But it's an odd thing in that I think there's a lot of reasons to be positive about Thomas Frank and what he's done, and a lot of reasons to sort of look at what Levy's done and think, oh, God, it just feels a bit basic. Now, I think Basuma's a great test of Frank's management. The fact he's taken action against him, the fact he's kicked him out of the squad for a lack of punctuality. If that gets Basuma performing to the level he was at when he was at Brighton, or even early on at Spurs, then that's a massive positive. I think you look at that squad, a lot of young players in it, so Bergvall, Archie Gray, but Pat Matassar is only 22, 23.
Yeah, he's
I
young.
think he's looked really good in pre-season, and then against PSG, I thought he was excellent. So you'd expect some sort of natural development there. So I don't think it's disastrous in terms of the squad. It just feels a little bit less than maybe Spurs fans were hoping for.
Yeah, because you mentioned Savinho. I don't understand that signing because he plays from the right, man. He can play the left as well, but I imagine he played from the right for Spurs. Kind of Kudus is playing that role at the moment. You've got Kulusevski to come back. And I know you need a squad, and we said this last week when we were talking about all the transfers, but you're pivoting from basically two players who are going to play as central number 10s, in my opinion, in Gibbs White and EZE, to a wide player. That doesn't scream brilliant transfer strategy to me.
And they've also got Brendan Johnson can play off the right.
Yeah, scored at the weekend.
I think Savinho could probably play off the left as well. It just sort of gives you options across the front line. I mean, Eze might have played off the left as well. So, there's some logic there. There's a Son replacement. I think to an extent, those modern wide forwards, a lot of them can play either side. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not quite certainly it's not the same profile as players as Gibbs White. Eze maybe gives you a bit more flexibility. But I mean, the only positive, and it's a pretty limited positive, is they were talking about Savinho a couple of weeks ago. So it's not like he's,
No,
oh
true.
God, we need somebody, let's get him. But I think ideally they wanted both of them. And
Yeah.
if you want both of them, you end up with one. That's obviously half as good. I mean, on a
No, I
basic
know it.
maths level.
I know what you mean. But it's top analysis. That's what we're here to do on this show.
Yeah,
Let's talk.
if you don't take anything else away from this, take away that one is half of two.
It's unbelievable mathematics and unbelievable football statistics. So thank you very much for that, Jonathan. We didn't even talk about Man City last week because we didn't pick them as a featured game. They went about their business at Wolves pretty simplistically, winning 4-0, as all good football analysts thought that they would. But I don't feel like we've spoke about their new signing. I think in the preview I actually said I'm not sure they've done anything there that makes me think wow. And then in the first game, they had a little midfield player in there who did make me feel wow, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, Thierry Reinders, and anybody who's seen him play either for the Netherlands or Milan, he's a really technically gifted player. However, we'd never seen him at this level. And I mean that in both senses, that with really good players around him, he becomes a better player because he's suddenly linking between exceptional players. And we hadn't seen, could he do it in the Premier League? Now, you can do it against Wolves. Can you do it against Tottenham? Can you do it against Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea? Those are different levels, different stages, and we'll see. But that was in a game it was quite easy for him. In a game against a pretty open midfield by Premier League standards, he played exceptionally well. So at the very least, you'd say he's an alternative to Rodri at the back of midfield. Maybe can play alongside Rodri. He distributes the ball incredibly well. He looks a very Guardiola player. I think City are going to try to be a bit more direct this season, and I think he can facilitate that. I think his forward passing is very, very good. So yeah, as debuts go, brilliant. But it's only Wolves. Let's see him against better opposition.
Yeah, that was the bit that impressed me with his performance, is that moving the ball not only forward, but moving it quickly. Manchester City felt a bit stodgy at times last season, didn't move the ball as quickly as we've seen them do in previous years. Did you notice anything else about the way they played? Any subtle changes, any big changes from last season?
I mean, not really. I think they were more direct. I think that was clear. I think to an extent that comes with confidence that the more anxious you are about an opposition, the less inclined you'll be to risk losing possession. I think against Wolves, particularly once they'd gone 2-0 up, which was about half an hour in, wasn't it, when they got the second? They were sort of like, well, even if we give it away, we'll get it back. It's fine. So they were really playing to Haaland's strengths in terms of playing off the last defender. Haaland it wasn't as apparent last season, but previous seasons he had a really good link up with De Bruyne with that kind of very quick forward pass to release him. I think Reinders was playing that type of pass. I'm not sure it's a type of pass Guardiola will always want them to play against better opposition. But yeah, I mean, Oscar Bob I thought looked really good, which it's great that he's got back to fitness after his injury problems. Again, I'm not sure that Bob and Doku will have quite as much joy against better sides, but against weaker teams, City can overwhelm them. So if you win 4-0 on the opening day, that's great, but it is only Wolves. And my takeaway from that was was more, God, Wolves are actually quite bad, and the form they showed in the last, from December onwards, that might not click straight back into that. What I would say is that the first sort of 15 minutes or so, I thought City was surprisingly open in the way they'd been surprisingly open against Al Hilal, and at times, that 3-month spell where they were poor last season. So I don't think everything is rosy at City, and I think this is a big test because Tottenham are a team who in recent years have troubled City. The last 4 games at the Etihad, Spurs have won 2 and drawn 1, and the goal difference over those 4 games is 12-9 in Tottenham's favour. So they've been high-scoring games. There's something about the way Spurs play. I guess that directness going to quick wide players, that is something that City can struggle with. Thomas Frank's got his record with Brentford against City, I think he lost 5 of 8 games. Though there was that season when they won them both. But if you actually look at the detail of the games, bearing in mind how much better City are than Brentford troubled them. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. I don't think it'll be easy for City at all this game. I think both Frank and Spurs have caused some problems in the recent past.
It'd be interesting to see how Spurs set up with this, whether it's 4 at the back, whether it's 3 at the back, with the wing backs given a bit of license to get forward.
Well, again, if you look at how Frank's played against City before, in the 8 games, 7 times he's gone in with a back 3. However, the most recent game was a back 4, which was the 2-2 draw. But my guess would be, having seen him against PSG, I would think that would be the model.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I think it'd be a game that has lots of goals. I don't think City will find it as easy as they did against Wolves, or Haaland will find it as easy as he did against Wolves. But he did look sharp, didn't he? Like, kind of, that's his second goal that he just kind of arced into the net with the usual pace. It doesn't even look like he's trying to put power on it. He just can't help it, Haaland, when he finishes.
Oh yeah, the idea that he's had a bad season last season, he's still got 20 odd goals. I mean, he's still, he will get goals. And if he's got that player in mind as playing the ball a bit quicker to him, if he's got the 2 wingers supplying crosses for him, he will score. And I think I'm sort of a big believer that you can over-engineer a side, that you want a little bit of tension there between what the players' instincts are and what the manager's telling them to do. I think that tension is often it's a very fine line, but if you can get it right, that tension is very creative. I think the season when City won the treble, when they had Grealish, who was he was running with it, but he was also, when he needed to be, he was conservative with the ball. You had Haaland wasn't dropping off, was sort of playing as a classic number 9, but you still had the sort of classic Guardiola structure around that. I think that is the ideal. But obviously, if you have too much tension, it's incoherent. If it's too perfect, it becomes quite predictable. So you're always, and I think that's what was so interesting about the Grealish and Haaland signings at City. They were players you would say didn't necessarily naturally fit a Guardiola style. They conformed themselves just enough but retained enough of their own individuality. You just got that little bit of friction to produce the creative sparks, which meant City were, on the one hand, coherent, solid, organised, but also had something a little bit unpredictable. Now, Bob and Doku maybe can give them that as well. Reinders looks like he's got that directness that De Bruyne at his best had. The player I'm not convinced about in that squad is Aït-Nouri, but we'll see how that develops.
Yeah, Shirky came on and got a goal as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, being a talented young player coming off the bench to score the 4th goal against Wolves, that it's good for him, good for his confidence, but it doesn't really tell us a huge amount.
Okay, I think I cut you off when you were going to say about Aït-Nouri, because I'm not convinced about that signing. It doesn't feel like a pet player to me.
Well, I think Guardiola was so, of all the players on the pitch, the players he has the most clear prescription for is the fullbacks. And I never thought watching Aït-Nouri at Wolves, he was a defensively solid presence. And it wouldn't surprise me that if we end up with Guardiola back at left back pretty quickly, and Aït-Nouri sort of being Calvin Phillips out of the squad.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. Let's get your prediction for this one then. City v Spurs. Jonathan thinks the lunchtime kick-off this weekend.
I've gone 2-1 City with Haaland to get the first goal.
I've gone 3-1 to City with the first goal, the same man than the Manchester City number 9. So let's see if that's a differential. Next, we're going to focus on 2 newly promoted teams. And Jonathan, Sunderland are back. Was it 99-2000 when Sunderland finished 7th and Kevin Phillips got the European Golden Boot and Sunderland just looked great for the whole season? Is that going to happen again here? Have we seen that after day one?
I mean, 7th, I'd be disappointed. I think we should be looking at Champions League. Look,
What a start, honestly.
But Sunderland also finished 7th in 2001, but it was a much less convincing season. 99-2000, Sunderland fell away quite badly the second half of the season, but there was a period sort of through the autumn and winter that was a lot of fun.
Magical times.
Yeah, and this was a really good performance. I didn't see the full 90 minutes, but my reading of it is that Sunderland did what they did in quite a few games last season of sitting back, absorbing pressure, and people thinking, "Oh, they're not playing very well here. They've only got 30% of the ball." Look at the games against Sheffield United. Sheffield United home game last season. Look at the Burnley away game last season. Look at the Coventry playoff games. Okay, there's 20 minutes in the second leg of that where they lost control. There's a lot of games last season where Sunderland played without the ball really well and looked dangerous on the break. At half time, there's a lot of anxiety of, oh yeah, West Ham have had one very good chance they had that Dan Ballard cleared off the line. But having talked to people who were there, having seen the highlights, I think it was Sunderland playing the way they actually want to play. That they let the opposition have the ball. West Ham created that one chance, but then they were very, very effective on the break. They got, I mean, if you look at the players they brought in, and I was reminded of something Ivan Juric, temporarily the Southampton manager last season, something he said. He said, like, I expected my players to be technically and tactically worse than the opposition. What I didn't realise was that we were going to be physically worse on them as well. And I think Championship to Premier League is a big physical step up. And the players they brought in over the summer are all big, physical, powerful players, or players with great engines like Granit Xhaka. And you really saw that, the physicality of Sunderland that last half hour. I think Leeds have done something very similar, actually. They've brought in big physical players. Yeah, to be honest, West Ham that last half hour, they couldn't live with them physically. So that, I think, is a very positive sign. The signings teams are continuing. They're still talking about there's talk of Ahmed Jallow, which I can't believe, but it would be great if it happened.
No way.
There's talk of another wide forward coming in. So I think there probably will be a couple more before the window closes. And so suddenly to have that range of options. I mean, Enzo Lefebvre coming off the bench, when it felt last season that if someone went up, Enzo Lefebvre would be sort of the centerpiece of the team. That shows how much business they've done. And they do all seem to be brought to this plan of be physically very, very aggressive and dominant and quick.
Yeah, because it was a very impressive performance, and there was lots of new boys in the team, but it was actually the players that were already there before the summer that got the goals, Jonathan. So it felt like a nice balance and a nice mix.
Yeah, and I hope that is the case, because it is something a bit sad about promoted sides now that you're watching players in the playoff final. And I was remember looking at Luke O'Nien in that playoff final, dislocated his shoulder in the second minute, went off, and then was celebrating like mad at the end. And you sort of think, I know he has just signed a new contract, to be fair, but you do sort of think, I really hope you're not playing next season. Like, you're a good bloke to have around the squad. He can play in half a dozen different positions. He's probably quite useful to have there in extremis. But if you look at O'Nien, Sunderland's first choice centre back, we are going down. But he's obviously nowhere near the team, which is shows the business they've done. But it is good for continuity, because the danger is you bring in a load of. I mean, Fulham did this a few years ago, didn't they? Spent an enormous amount of money, brought in a load of new players who didn't settle, didn't gel. You end up with sort of almost two distinct squads. The fact that every goal was set up by a new player and every goal was scored by an old player.
Oh, that's nice.
That's just symbolically, it feels like there's integration there. I'm really pleased Wilson Isidore scored, because I think he's somebody who could have, came off a bench. He's somebody who could have drifted away quite easily, because I don't think he is top level, but got 14 goals last season. Scored exactly the goal he scored against Coventry in the playoff first leg last season. That was another nice thing. If West Ham had looked at Sunderland's last 3 games, they'd have seen 2 of the goals they conceded, because the Ballard goal I mean, slightly different, but it's a big booming header. The Wilson Isidore goal was exactly the same as the winner in the first leg of Coventry. Yeah, just breaking from halfway, cutting it into his right foot. That sort of whipped shot with a little bit of dip on it that just makes it hard for the keeper into the far post. So, and also, I don't know when the last Wilson to score for Sunderland in the top flight was, but
You'd
I
actually,
don't think it's been one in my lifetime until Wilson Isidore.
that's great. And that again is just fantastic to see. So where you almost didn't want to predict Sunderland last week. You didn't want to, you didn't want to, you hated making a prediction about the game, but you must be feeling good now. You've had a great weekend last weekend. You've been at 2 great games of football, and your team's won. I was at a rubbish game of football, and my team drew 0-0. So you've had a better weekend than me in the first week of the season, I would say.
Well, except I picked up a cold in an
Yeah,
incredibly hot, awful hotel room on Salford Quays on the Saturday night. It's and you can probably hear it. And I felt rubbish all week. So yes, I watched some good football. Nice to get Sunderland's result, but I feel terrible now. I've paid an awful price for that
it's
joy.
come at a cost.
It has come at a cost. Yeah.
Where are you going to spread your cold this weekend?
I'm going to Palace Forest on Sunday.
Palace Forest. Okay. Palace fans are already going to be quite low at the thought of losing their talisman. Although I did say actually that he's going to play next Thursday before he goes to Arsenal, which is quite weird. Read that earlier before we came on.
Yeah, God, if he breaks his leg in that game,
Oh,
this
that's
is
what I thought.
the Conference League.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you
playoff.
who they're playing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That seems weird to me because he's got to get through the weekend as well. Luckily, he's gone before we let Crystal Palace play Villa, which is absolutely brilliant news. Anyway, we've gone completely away from Burnley against Sunderland here. Just a quick word on Burnley. I said about Sunderland, lots of new boys, but the old guard grabbed the goals. Burnley were the opposite. They almost didn't feel fresh enough. You referenced Leeds have done good business as well. Burnley just looked kind of the same Burnley that went down last time to me.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. I think their problem is less the players they've brought in. They've brought in about a dozen, haven't they? But the problem is the players who've left.
Yeah,
So
true.
CJ Riley's gone to Marseille, which is a problem. Josh Brownhill's just hasn't signed a new contract, and I think is still without a club. So if you look at their defence from last season, Egan Riley and Esteve at the middle of the back four. We've now gone to about, or certainly on Saturday, they played a back three. That midfield of Brownhill and Cullen, which was so effective. And Brownhill got forward and scored goals as well, but there was
Yeah,
a
he
really
did.
solid barrier before he got to the back four. They've now lost half of that. So I don't know. Watching that Spurs game, the thing when you watch Burnley last season, you would see almost invariably when the opposition won the ball, they'd have 2 lines of defence to get through. They'd have that very solid block of well, normally one of the fullbacks at least. So it's a block of 3 with 2 in front. You looked on Saturday, there's a gaping hole. The half a side press, half stayed deep. And the number of times Spurs played low, quick, sort of 40, 50-yard passes up to Richarlison, up to Kudus, who could then drop off and turn. And you sort of think that the structure that got them up last season, the structure that I thought maybe they're bedding in for the Premier League, and that can help them at least keep clean sheets in the Premier League. That seemed to have vanished on that first weekend. So I think there was some good signs in a creative play. I thought they created a bit more than I thought, particularly at 1-0 down. But something's gone wrong in that midfield. It needs putting right quickly.
Yeah, and will it get put right this weekend? Big game, this 2 newly promoted teams early doors in the season. What have you predicted?
Well, I think Scott Parker will go back to basics. He'll try and get a structure right. If you look at the 2 games between Sunderland and Burnley last season, Sunderland totally dominated the Stadium of Light, won 1-0. The game at Turf Moor was one of those games where Sunderland let the opposition have the ball. There's pretty hairy first 20 minutes in that game where Burnley are on top. But Sunderland, I think, controlled the end of that game quite well. Missed 2 penalties in the last 10 minutes, so yeah, probably should have won it. But I think Sunderland will be happy enough with a point. I think Burnley will try and keep a clean sheet, so I'm going 0-0.
Oh, 0-0, no goal scorer, of course. Could you predict 0-0 and then chance your arm at predicting a goal scorer? Would we allow that with the predictions? Kind of hedging your bets there, aren't you?
I don't like the sound of that.
No, I was just asking. The rules are bent in football all the time, Jonathan. I was just wondering whether we could do it in the prediction. It wouldn't be something I'd want to do for the integrity of the predictions, but I was just wondering if you could do that.
I think your first scorer has to be coherent with your
Fine.
scores. So if you say, City to beat Spurs 3-0, you couldn't then say Richarlison first
Yeah.
scorer.
Okay, fair enough. I enjoy that. We're keeping with the spirit of the predictions. I've gone for Burnley 0, Sunderland 2, maybe Sunderland even to be top of the league at the end of. I know they won't because Man City have going to beat Spurs according to my predictions, so that won't happen. But if Sunderland are on 6 points after 2 games, my word, I've gone for a Dingra, who I thought looked lively to score the first goal there. Next up, Jonathan, we're going to do Fulham against Manchester United, and we're going to start with some trivia, which I know you always get very excited about.
Oh, yeah. I love trivia.
Okay, I haven't wrote the question down, so that could be a problem. I have to try and do it from memory. So, in the Premier League, 3 centre forwards have played for Fulham and wore the number 9 shirt for Manchester United. Who are those 3 centre forwards?
Louis Zaha.
Yeah,
Oh, they're obvious people, are they?
I don't think it's the hardest trivia in the world. I'm pleased to see you struggling, to be honest.
Zaha's a good answer, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's right. So, yeah, it's a great answer. And it was quick.
This is terrible podcasting, right?
I did. Oh, it's all right. We'll cut this bit out. We'll cut some of the thinking time out, or we'll fast forward it. I did not think this would stump you. I tried to go relatively easy, I thought, for the first trivia of the season. This wasn't even something that you could Google. It was just off my own memory.
I'm trying to think United number 9s.
There's one I thought you'd get easily, and then the third one I didn't think you'd get as easily, but I did think you'd get it.
Go on, give me a nationality.
I'll give you the nationality. One's English.
One's English.
I'm not giving you the nationality of the other one because you'll get it.
I'm trying to think, who's worn the 9 for United? Not Anthony Martial.
I reckon this one wore 9 for longer than anyone else in the Premier League, perhaps. Capped by England, but not many times. Not as much as you feel he should be. If I say the next clue, you're going to get it. Treble winner at Manchester United.
Oh, Andy Cole.
Andy Cole. I don't even think I can count that as you being right there.
Yeah, no, it's pathetic.
And
but Andy Cole played for like a million teams. It's very difficult to remember who he played for.
It forms part of the quiz question, doesn't it? The trivia. It's still right.
Yeah.
Do you want me to give you the last one? I'll give you another easy clue.
Yeah, give me a clue. Go on, make me feel better.
He also wore the
cold. I'm ill. I'm an ill man.
He also wore the number 9 shirt for Tottenham in the Premier League. He wore it for Fulham, Tottenham, and Manchester United.
Did Berbatov play for Fulham?
Yes, he did for a few years, I think.
That has not stayed in my memory at all.
Wow, Jonathan, that is. I've not often seen you stumped like that. I'm oddly proud of myself with that there. Okay, brilliant. Right, I'll come back next week. Try and make it a little bit easier for you, if I can, Jonathan. Let's talk about Fulham against Manchester United then. Fulham still a very general lack of transfer activity here. Marco Silva always strikes me as someone who could just get frustrated and leave. I feel like he has that temperament. He's spoken about being frustrated. They're just not really doing anything, are they?
Yeah, I mean, I think he was close to moving to Saudi Arabia last year. In the early part of last season, or just before the season began, and decided to stay. I don't know. Last season was an odd season for them because I think the number of games, particularly against good sides, where they were ahead and conceded late on, I think it could easily have been it was a good season from last season, but it could easily have been a very good season for them. So, I mean, in some ways, not losing players for Fulham is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I guess so. Who are they going to lose, though? Who would they come and get picked apart for?
Well, Robinson, maybe.
Yeah, because to me, there's no real star there. They're just a good team with a good manager. But I do think if the manager was to leave, it might fall down a little bit.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, they feel very mid-table, don't they? It's very hard to see them doing anything that's exciting at all this season. So yeah, it's. But as Liverpool proved last season, you don't have to sign loads of players. I think we get obsessed by signings, and I as I say, I think that their ceiling last season was higher than their final league placing. So if they can just develop that bit of an edge to hold on to leads, to maybe take advantage when they're on top in games, just sort of be a little bit, have a slightly harder edge, I think it could easily be sort of 6, 7, 8 points better off. And then they're in Europe and that becomes a great season. So, and also maybe the best way to do PSR is to sort of almost have a fallow year to build up a bit of headroom, and then you can come in with big signings next summer.
Yeah, okay. So they're looking at loans, aren't they? Looking at getting Reece Nelson back. I think, from Arsenal. Is one of their main transfer spheres at the moment. Muniz has obviously been linked a lot with Leeds. They don't want to lose him. The fans love him. He equalised against Brighton last week. And so maybe you're right, maybe just keeping hold of kind of what they've got and maybe adding a couple of clever loans. Maybe that is the way forward for teams like Fulham.
But Muniz is he's signing a new deal, isn't he? I think that's broken over the last day or two.
I haven't seen that. I know Leeds were very interested in him.
Yeah, I think he's now committing to Fulham. I mean, obviously Smith Rowe, I think is. I mean, it's almost like it's a nice place for former Arsenal players to go and sort of.
They love it there.
I mean, Iwobi had a good season last season as well. So, I mean, yeah, Reece Nelson, what bizarre career that is. That he sort of. Oh, he must be about 92 now. Still an Arsenal prospect.
I reckon he's 24. Reece Nelson.
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, I reckon he'll be about 24. For all we're saying about Fulham's kind of lack of activity, it does feel like a dangerous game for Manchester United for me, and losing their first 2 games almost feels unthinkable.
Yeah, I mean that's very true. I sort of if you look at Ruben Amorim's win percentage, which is one stat among many, I'm not sure what you necessarily have to take that as the most serious one, but he's around the Franco Farrell, Wilson McGuinness level at the moment. If he loses this one, he drops below them, and you have the lowest United win percentage of any permanent manager since Herbert Bamlett, who was sacked in 1931. So,
how do you know that?
Because I wrote it in my piece last week, so I looked it up.
That's how he knows.
But I think the actual detail doesn't really matter. Yeah, is he as good a manager as Franco Farrell? I mean, who cares? But the point is, because last season was so bad, it doesn't have to go very wrong at the start of this season to look catastrophic. He's got 0 credit in the bank. I think the reaction last week was pretty generous to United, as I said before. But that's not going to last for very long. If they don't, I mean, even if they draw against Fulham, the thought of United no wins in the first 2 games this season, then you sort of go, well, hang on. Last season I know they beat Villa, but apart from Villa, their record at the end of last season was terrible. They didn't win the Europa League final, and so the sort of keeping Amorim on has been an act of faith, that a belief that the squad will adjust to his way of playing, and that it's worth carrying on with an experiment. It's actually quite damaging to their playing staff. They're going to lose a load of players and lose a load of money on those players who can't play that system. They're going to have to spend a lot of money to get players in who can play that system. And I think there were promising signs from Mbeumo, Cunha in particular. Šeško didn't look great off the bench, but he'd only been there a week, to be fair to him. I think other signings they've made, Yoro, Dorgu particularly last week, I thought looked really good. They've got problems at the back of midfield that needs sorting out. And if your whole regeneration project is based on we're going to redevelop the entire squad, all 25, 30 players, to fit this one man, that's a lot of faith you're placing in one man. Where his performances last season, I don't think really justified that. I'm not saying we should have sacked him. What I'm saying is you're not acting out on evidence, you're acting on faith. And how long does that faith endure if they start this season badly? And okay, they played quite well but lost to Arsenal. You can get away with that. If you don't beat Fulham and then next week and the next week, suddenly he's under massive pressure. And you've begun this rebuilding project to create the vision of somebody who you then are thinking about sacking. And that's a big, big problem.
Yeah. You say about him not having any credit in the bank of last season. I almost feel like it's as if last season was nothing to do with him. Like he's just been completely writ off as nothing to do with the manager last season. That's how I feel about it. It's like now is him starting. This is his fresh start.
To an extent, that's fair enough. Whoever came in last season was going to find it difficult with that squad. Totally incoherent squad put together under 5 different managers. Morale really low. I think lots of problems in terms of when I say discipline, I don't mean they're all going out sort of getting hammered on a Wednesday night or whatever. I just think that people have lost a bit of belief, and so it's very easy when you cease to believe in a project for your level to drop from 100% to 95 to 90 to 85, and then the products. I mean, we've both been on podcasts where we've seen this happen, Dan. Let's be honest.
Should we
And
clarify
then
that's not The Guardian? Because we both want to do The Guardian podcast this season.
I'm not naming names. It's definitely not the Guardian. And then the product you're producing is less good than it ought to be. And the same happens with players. You're training hard is hard. It's it's you're punishing your body. And if you're waking up in the morning thinking, this is brilliant, I want to go and work really hard, I want to sort of push my levels higher, I want to kind of get the system exactly right so I'll be perfect at the weekend, that is a much better attitude to take in than, oh God, what's this idiot going to be saying today? Oh jeez, I can't be bothered. Oh God, it's cold. Oh, my ankle's really sore. Oh, I might see if I can just get a massage rather. And it's very easy without behaving badly. It's very easy for that attitude to seep in. And that's the danger they've got.
You ran through that routine a little bit too easily for me. Like it might have been something that you did at 7 o'clock until 8 o'clock this morning. And before we came on this podcast, Jonathan, I'm a bit unnerved by that. One thing you did say last week, and I thought when you said it, I thought that was a weird thing to pick out from Manchester United. You picked out Mason Mount, and then I watched the game, and in the first half in particular, I thought he was absolutely unbelievable. I thought he had such a good first half.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether he'd be the sort of one of the forward two, one of the inside forwards, or if he played deep, because I think he can do either. But he was really, really good as
So good.
one of the forward two. Bruno then playing deeper, which I have to say I'm not convinced by at all, or certainly not with Casemiro or particularly Ugarte alongside
He's
him.
terrible.
But Mason Mount, I really hope we see the good Mason Mount again, because 5-6 years ago he was a really, really good player, and it's a real shame that the injuries, plus maybe the move, have diminished him. But let's not forget that when they came through, he seemed a better player than Declan Rice. Very different types of player in the sense that I think Rice is very much about the engine and the physicality. Mount is about the sort of the tactical intelligence, which possibly Declan Rice lacks. I could almost see the two playing together and dovetailing very, very well, because they seem to have complementary attributes. But Mason Mount's a type of player who I think should be able to succeed. I think he's a type of player English football often doesn't produce. And I think in terms of an England squad, he gives you a whole load of options, because he can play in almost any midfield position. And that then means that within games, particularly within knockout games, you can ask him last half hour, look, we got the lead. Can you pick up him? Can you sit in this space? Can you close that down? And he's tactically smart enough to do that. So if they can get him playing regularly, if they can get him fit, that's a huge asset for United to have.
Yeah, and for all Manchester United played well, you aren't going to do anything with the goalkeepers that they've got at the moment. Awful.
I agree with that. What I will say is I sort of 60% think that goal should have been ruled out.
Really?
Not for the foul on the keeper, for the foul on Mason Mount.
Okay, that's more reasonable. Yeah.
Mason Mount's shirt is up around his neck. It doesn't get there unless you sort of dragged it up. So I think the keeper, I think Bayern needs to be stronger. I think that was a great press conference moment where I can't remember who the journalist was, said, we have seen this with him before. And Ammo said, when? At Tottenham last season, the League Cup? That was a refereeing mistake. We didn't have... but we've seen before that in-swingers on Bayern, Onana doesn't like them either. But that's something United don't defend well. I'm not sure talking about VAR in that circumstance is really that helpful. You got to work out how you're going to do it. You've got to be a bit more cynical, a bit savvier. That when Saliba's pulling one of your players all over the place, somebody's got to get involved and stop him doing that. When there's pressure being put on your keeper, somebody's got to get in there and protect your keeper. If the keeper can't protect himself, as we saw Raya doing in the second half. So I think a lot of teams are going to be putting in swingers on United, and they've got to learn how to deal with it, because we've seen it's a big weakness for them.
Yeah, certainly. I imagine Fulham are going to try and go that avenue at the weekend after witnessing Arsenal do it last weekend and the problems that you spoke about there previously. What's your score prediction then, Jonathan? I was so tempted to go for Fulham to win this, but I haven't. I've gone for Fulham 1, Manchester United 1, with Muniz to score the first goal.
United's record at Fulham is very good, and so I'm going for them to win 2-1 and Cunha to get the first goal.
You've gone off history there. I'm more of a vibes man. with my predictions.
Well, I would argue that vibes are history.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I guess. I mean, technically, everything's history. If it's not happening now, everything's history, isn't it? Already, my prediction and your prediction is history.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think a lot of the time, oh, they haven't won at this venue for 25 years. A lot of the time, if you look at the context, you realise they've only played 3 times, and yeah, it's not particularly relevant. But I do think, you know this about Villa when they play at Old Trafford. Something in the Villa head says we never win here, and
Yeah,
I think Fulham have that with United when they go to Craven Cottage. Like, we never beat this lot, and that like, does just affect it sort of 3-4%. And I think that I also think that much as I'd like to keep on writing pieces slagging off Manchester United and talking about why it's gone wrong, because that is the easiest win there is for journalists. It's easy
it
to write.
really is.
It's fun to write, and you get really good numbers for it. I fear the narrative is gonna be punctured this week, and United will win that. And I do think United ultimately the season will finish 6th or 7th. I think the lack of Europe will help them, and this
Yeah,
maybe is the beginning of that. So yeah, United to win 2-1, and I was impressed enough by Cunha, who I think will have at least one little paddy during the season, but it hasn't come yet.
did you pick Cunha as your first goal scorer?
Yeah.
Ah, fair enough. Good pick. In my fantasy football team, Jonathan. In my fantasy football team. So
Glad to hear it. I honestly, I can't tell you how my heart lifts when you start telling me about fantasy football.
not a great start to the Libero
No,
fantasy
no, no.
league for me.
I was. Oh, I'm glad you're part of it, but I genuinely that was not an invitation to talk about it.
Okay, I was just informing you. I didn't get off to a great start.
But nice to mention Libero, another podcast I do. So please do listen to that out twice a week. We've just done an episode on the Alexander Isak situation, trying to put in the context of the Northeast and of history.
Before we do the Monday night football, Newcastle v Liverpool, that's great that's Monday night football. It's just heritage, isn't it? That game takes place on a Monday, Newcastle against Liverpool. Let's run through the rest of our predictions because they all take place before that game. So West Ham v Chelsea, Jonathan. West Ham are rubbish.
Yeah, there's a couple of Chelsea players have gone down with coldy fluey things.
Oh, have they been hanging around with you?
They absolutely haven't. So we'll see if that has any impact. But I've gone Chelsea to win it 2-1. Cole Palmer with the opening goal.
I've gone Chelsea to win 2-0. Cole Palmer with the opening goal. A few little differentials in the prediction so far. Bournemouth v Wolves. I've gone for 3-0 to Bournemouth. Evan Nielsen to score, Jonathan. What have you gone for?
Oh, I've gone 2-1. Evan Nielsen.
Okay,
2-1 to Bournemouth, obviously.
Yeah, of course. I mean, no one's predicting Wolves to win, Jonathan. I think we all knew that it was Bournemouth. Brentford v Villa, Jonathan. Interested to see where you've gone here.
I've gone 1-1. Ollie Watkins.
1-1. Oh no, I've gone for Brentford 0, Aston Villa 1, and Daniel Marlin, who I think might start to score the goal and win his place into the team that he deserves. Arsenal v Leeds, I've gone 2-0, and then for some reason picked Martinelli to score the first goal.
I've gone 2-0 to Arsenal and Gyökeres to get off the mark, probably from a set piece.
I hope he does because he got a lot of stick last week.
He's not going to do it by running onto a through ball, is he?
Didn't look like it, but it is very, very early. They're trying too hard, would be how I would describe his performance against Manchester United.
Possibly, but I mean, he's not the only player. I actually thought this of Florian Wirtz as well, which, to my surprise, really struggling with the pace of the Premier League the first couple of weeks, which is natural enough. I don't really blame him for it, but I think Wirtz tired pretty quickly. I think by midway through the second half, he was obviously knackered. Gyökeres' problem is he's just such a big bloke that he doesn't look a natural runner. So when he's sort of struggling a bit, it looks awful. I'm not saying he's massively unfit. I'm saying he's not quite Premier League level yet.
No, he's a power forward though, Jonathan. I did a piece on power forwards earlier on in the season, and that running stride. I think he'll come good. I've got no doubt that he'll score a lot of goals for Arsenal. Palace v Forest. I guess Eze will play in that game for Palace. Is my guess if he's playing on Thursday next week. They've already arranged.
Palace to win 1-0. Mateta to score.
Ooh, I like this one because I've gone for Forest to win 1-0. Wood to score. They looked good last week at Forest, but they were playing Brentford, although I shouldn't slag off Brentford too much because my team's playing them this week. And then finally, Everton against Brighton. I found this one a tough one to call, the first game at the new stadium.
I've gone 0-0.
He's gone 2-0. I mean, there was 2 0-0s in the Premier League last week. He's gone 0-0. Okay. I've got Everton 1, Brighton 1. Ruta to score the first goal.
Yeah, I mean, Everton really didn't look very good. Certainly didn't
No.
look very good going forward at Leeds. And Brighton looked pretty insipid as well. I think pretty fortunate to get the lead against Fulham. So I think two teams sort of struggling for a bit of form, but both go solidity rather than attack. I don't know. I now think I should have gone for Everton to win that new
You
stadium.
can't change.
No, I'm sticking with 0-0. I'm sticking with 0-0.
0-0. Okay, I mean, it might be a 0-0 out of the two games that you've picked. Let's move on to Newcastle v Liverpool then. When it was the Carling Premiership, I believe those games were absolute classics on a Monday night or in midweek. It might not have even been a Monday, actually. We did quite a lot of Newcastle last week because they were one of our main games. I wanted to talk about Liverpool's defensive deficiencies and how easy they were to play through and how that actually might suit Newcastle in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle's preferred means of attack is on the break. I think we saw in the Villa game how they really miss a centre forward. That Anthony Gordon can do some aspects of it, but that opportunity he had, there was a whipped in cross. And it's not a bad effort from him. It's not an easy chance, but you think he's just being a bit taller, being a better head of the ball, would have had a better chance of timing his glance right. That opportunity Langer had early on, where I was sitting in a coffee shop in Manchester, watching that on my phone, and it just
You live the life you do, don't you?
it was. I might have been eating a burrito at that point. I think I
Oh,
might not
my
even have
word.
moved to the coffee house, and there's something about his body shape was all wrong. You just knew he wasn't going to score. He just didn't look confident as he ran through. And again, you think, I'm not saying Isak would have scored, but he wouldn't have looked so ungraceful in not scoring. So you think, how do Newcastle attack in a way that will look convincing? And yeah, three of them pouring forward on the break. Alanga's very good at that. Gordon's very good at that. Whether it's Harvey Barnes, whether it's Ramsey or Murphy driving through, whichever three they perm from those five, playing on the break, playing with space in front of them is the way they want to play. And Liverpool apparently are quite happy to give teams that. Gravenberch obviously will be back, and we'll see whether his return makes as big a difference as some I think are hoping. There was that second Bournemouth goal I found utterly baffling on last Friday. You're 2-1 up with what was that goal? 77 minutes, something like that.
It's quite late, yeah.
You're 2-1 up. Why are you sending 8 players up? It makes no sense. Why is Endo not just occupying that space in front of Van Dijk and Konate? And so I know Van Dijk and Konate end up looking terrible because they're sort of backing off. But what are they meant to do? If they'd gone to him, if they'd gone to Semenyo, he had a player either side. So you could easily just play them in, and then it's them against one, and with another player ready to be crossed to. So they had to back off. And then they end up sort of leaving the space, and Semenyo takes it brilliantly. But the problem is not really Van Dijk and Konate. It's the fact there's no sort of breakwater before that. What happened structurally, I don't know. I know Jamie Carragher has been talking a lot about how Liverpool have gone to more of a man-to-man pressing system over the summer, and that's leaving them a bit open. I think you saw that in the Community Shield, that Kerkez kept getting dragged in field on Ismail Assar, which allowed Munoz to get forward in that space. Gakpo was having to do a lot of defending, which he probably didn't want to do, and which then meant Liverpool, when they attacked, Ekitike ended up going to that left side because that's where the space was. But then Salah became very isolated. So I think that if they have gone to a more man-to-man system, it is quite. There is a danger that they get manipulated and balance goes in the side. But maybe Gravenberch coming back, resuming his partnership with McAllister at the back of midfield. Even then, Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai it's a more obvious balance than having Wirtz as one of those three. So we'll see how that works. But I'd if I was a Newcastle fan, I'd be thinking that there's definitely a way that they can hurt Liverpool there.
Yeah, they are good in transition, aren't they, Newcastle? Even the midfielders, the way they carry the ball before the front three, I think that they can be very, very dangerous, very, very powerful. But I do think Gravenberch coming back in does make a difference. It's in terms of him and McAllister, they just offer such control as well. I don't think it'll feel so frantic with both of them in the midfield. Let's talk about Ekitike. Just looks amazing. I know they're going to sign Isak probably, or they're trying to sign Isak still, whatever happens, but you're then probably taking Ekitike away from being the number 9, and he looks brilliant at it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think now, I'm not saying that Isak will not come in before to close the window. I think I would say it's sort of 60-40 doesn't come in
Okay.
by September the 1st. We'll see. I thought that Newcastle statement left a little bit of room for a deal to be done, but I think they do want a replacement to come in. I don't think I don't think it's sensible in Newcastle. I think they should just offload and get whatever the money they can. And if that means they're a bit short of a centre forward till Christmas, yeah, just suck it up because. And this is where PSR. Yeah, if you think about it, they bought Isak for 60 million.
Hmm.
Selling him after 2 years, his book value will be 24 million. So they sell him for say 130. That means they're getting, what's that, 106 million pound book profit. If you then sign players on 5-year contracts, so you can amortize that, that's 530 million quid you've got to play with. So they can open up the head. I mean, obviously you've got to pay wages and everything on that as well. There will be some tax, but you're opening up a lot of PSR headroom. The idea that Newcastle have been stiffed by PSR, sell a player because that's how you generate headroom. That's how Chelsea have done it so well. It's bizarre that football has come down to these accounting games, but it has, and that's the system you got to play within. So yeah, but that's not really the question you're asking.
I like the answer though, regardless.
Ekitike has been way, way more polished than I was expecting. People, I talked to in Germany said, "Oh, he's a bit raw." To be fair, both in the Community Shield and against Bournemouth, he scored a goal, taking it really well, and then missed an apparently easier chance pretty soon afterwards. So maybe there is an element of rawness there, but his touch is extraordinary. If you look at that goal he scored against Bournemouth, there's 6 Bournemouth players around him, and he just sort of charges, little jink, okay, bundles through because he's got the strength. Then he reacts to that really well. Maybe Petrovic sort of dives out of his way a bit. I don't think Petrovic had the greatest game, but still very calmly sort of strokes it in. So he appears at times a very good finisher. His first touch is incredible. His sort of willingness to take players on, I think, is very encouraging. Big, he's quick. I like it, but that sort of dropping off, moving to the left. The link up to Gakpo, I think, is starting to come. There's a couple of moments in the first sort of 15 minutes on Friday when he linked up with Salah as well, which I think had been a bit of a concern after Community Shield, that everything seemed to be on the left side. Although, as I said before, I think that might be to do with Kirkus' positioning. Salah felt much more part of the side on Friday, which is obviously important for Liverpool going forward. So yeah, he's been much more of a finished product than I was expecting. Ekitike.
I like the way he carried himself after the game as well in the post match interview on Sky. I thought he came across quite humble and thinking he can improve, and the way he spoke, just the way he carried himself generally, I was quite impressed with him. I think he's been brilliant. I love the way he drops deep and links the play. He almost gives the best of what Firmino gave Liverpool, but by also gives them something else as well by being able to go in behind with his clever runs. I think he's going to be exceptional.
Yeah, no, I agree. And his height as well, the fact he should be good in the air. I know he missed that decent headed chance on
He'll
Friday.
work on that, won't he?
But yeah, he's certainly got the physical attributes to be good in the air.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching him this season. With that in mind then, Jonathan, have you predicted him to be the first goal scorer this week?
No, I've gone for Salah and I've gone for Liverpool to win 2-1.
I've gone for Liverpool to win 3-1, and I'm going to keep predicting Cody Gakpo to score the first goal for Liverpool until he does it, because I don't want to just predict the same as you. I knew you were going to go Salah, so I don't want to be that guy. So I've gone for Cody Gakpo, who did score, just not the first goal last week. All right, Jonathan, it's been a pleasure. Another show in the books. You can go and feel sorry for yourself for the rest of the day with your cold. Any interesting plans?
I've got to do an interview for It Was What It Was, one of my other podcasts.
Yeah, many podcasts in the Jonathan Wilson stable.
I've got to write my column. I'll start my column for The Guardian. And I've got to do some research for a series of podcasts we're doing for It Was What It Was, looking at the NASL. So they'll be out later in the year at some point, hopefully.
Okay. That sounds like a fun day. Thank you very much for joining me here again on 1992. And we'll be back again next week to preview the Premier League, as we have done the last 2 weeks. If you are enjoying it, then please subscribe with your post notifications on. We can't really make any money until we get to 1,000 subscribers, so it'd be nice if we could hit 1,000 subscribers very, very soon. And yeah, we'll be back next week. So this has been 1992. I'm Dan Bardell. And thanks to Jonathan Wilson too.